Okay, now we are recording. All right. And we're going to get started right away. Hi and welcome everybody. My name is Helmut and I am here again with my two wonderful lady friends. And one is our great friend Laura Ketty, and the other one is my wife, Cordell Whitaker. Hi, you guys.
Hi. Hi, everybody.
You're very quiet, Kay.
What do I have to do to change that?
Can you hear okay, Laura?
I can hear. Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
All right. And this is the second weaving webinar about the weaving teachings. And today we are going to talk about three things. At least we are aiming for three things. One is about our starvation, modern people's starvation. The other one is about the human potential. And the third one is about becoming alive again. The starvation theme came up when we did a webinar, a couple of webinars back, and Kate talked about that her parents, her adopted Peruvian grandparents, and the teachings they taught her, they fed a starvation that she didn't know she had. And so we thought we expand on that so she can describe more about that. The human potential is kind of something very close to our heart, an opportunity to share what really is our potential. What is humanity? What is human nature? What is human consciousness? What is the potential of human consciousness? So those are the things we're going to talk with Kay about, or have Kay share a lot about. And the last thing, the becoming alive again part, is comes from many traditional cultures and people from those cultures calling us in the modern world, people in the modern world, the walking dead. And we'd like to look at why they say that, where that comes from, and then have Kate talk about how we can change that, how we can become alive again, hence the title. So hi and welcome everybody again, and enjoy the journey, the adventure. Kate?
Hi, everybody. It's really nice to be back again. And this particular technology, I can't see your faces, but I'm imagining them. I'm pretending. I love being on this picture phones. My daughter always laughs a lot when I say that. Sounds like old people talk. But, you know, there's a lot of different kinds of picture phones these days. So I'll stick with the picture phones where you can see everybody's really wonderful smiling faces. So hello, everybody. And this is about the weavings. And like Helmut said, this is the first part is concerning what my teachers called starvation, our cultural starvation. And we as a whole group of people in this modern culture have a lot of sicknesses. Everybody's starting to notice how incredibly sick we are. But it's not just physical illnesses. We have mental, emotional, psychological illnesses. And we have spiritual illnesses. And a good way to describe the spiritual illnesses that are plaguing, absolutely epidemic in our modern culture is starvation. So we're starving. What are we starving from? What are we missing? What are we lacking? We think we have all kinds of things. We think we have everything. We think we're rich. We can get anything we want. We can have anything we want. We can work at something and become anything that we want. We can work and make a lot of money. We can buy anything we want. But those are small things. Those are just very little things, small pieces of our lives. The big piece of our lives, what we're really, really lacking is our spiritualness, the spiritual part of our beingness, our spirituality. This culture has really done a number to drown out, to beat out, to hide every single thing that has to do with spirituality. They pretend, they talk a lot about spiritual things. They confuse spiritual things with organized religion. And they're two very different things. Real spirituality doesn't have much of anything to do with organized religion. I don't mean to be harsh. I don't mean to sound insulting or rude or degrading. But through the centuries, through even millennia, the organized religions have become one of the major factors of the organizing of our culture and the control of our culture, the control of the governments that help run our culture. And they are responsible for designing our beliefs and the directions that those beliefs take us. They're responsible for teaching us how to take all of those kinds of beliefs on blindly, to just accept them. They've placed themselves as the big authority in our culture. And they want to drown out all the other views. Now, our culture has taken some interesting turns. There are, of course, people that notice that these controlling factors of our consciousness and our awareness, which include those major religions and all the governments and everything that the institutions that kind of tumble out of the big system of the religions and the governments. They're forming our way of thinking and feeling and believing and our lifestyle. Every little tiny piece of our lifestyle. Now, in with the governments and the major religions, we have huge corporate interests that are gobbling up economically everything, beginning to own everything. And they have their own interests, their agendas as to what they want us to be thinking and believing and doing, and how we want to live. I want to keep teaching us to live and behave in certain ways so that they can make more money and stay in control. they've all left out the spiritual nature of everything, but especially humanity. Everything has a spiritual aspect to it. And even things we think of as being inanimate, because everything is alive. Everything is alive, everything is conscious, it's thinking, it's feeling, it has emotions, communicates, everything, every atom, everything. Everything has a physical component. Some things are without the physical component from time to time. Pure spirit. Everything has consciousness, thinking, mental capacity, emotions, feeling, perceiving, feeling, awareness, communicating with everything else, connecting. This communication that goes on all the time with everything and everybody, 24/7, is mostly spiritual in nature. It does reach out into the mental and emotional and even into the physical realms, but it is largely spiritual. So if you want to cut out the spiritual out of our lives, then you're cutting out the connectedness. Our connectedness, our communication with everything else. The majority of who and what we are is spiritual. That's the biggest piece of us, the spiritual side. And we've been cutting that out. We cut it out of our awareness, whether it's in a rock or the spirits that walk the earth with us, or trees, animals, plants, other humans, the waters, the winds, everything. We pretend it doesn't exist. That's what we've learned to do. So we're starving. We've been starving for a long time, and the starvation has gotten more and more and more severe. We're starving from this lack, this ignoring, hiding, running away from everything that is spiritual. In the spiritual realm of things, we also call that the non-linear, the non-physical, the unseen. That's where all these more shamanic and ancient traditions talk about the magic. Where the magic is, this is where the magic lives, in our spiritual side. But it's not to these controlling interests. It's not to their benefit that we discover these things, that we discover what real spirituality is in ourselves, in the connectedness, in everything else, in the universe. The biggest piece of the universe is contained in the spiritual realm. So we've been living some pretty strange lives in our culture. And it creates a lot of, it's like having a great big hole inside us, in our gut, in our heart, in our mind. A great big gaping oozing hole that is very, very hungry, that would like to have our spirituality back, would like to find out what all that stuff is. Because even the people out there who are really living that modern life, really engaged in it, and very, very asleep, and what Helmut mentioned, my teachers called that the walking dead. They're very, very involved in those beliefs, that way of life, that way of living. They're trying very hard to make it work. But even all of those people, as asleep as they are, still have this gnawing feeling that something is empty, something is unfulfilled, something's missing, something's wrong. And I don't know what it is. I don't have a clue what it is. They don't know where to look for it, and they don't know how to fix it. And so they try to ignore it and move on with their regular life. Pretend it's not there. But there's always something that is feeling uncomfortable, unsatisfied. They know that their interactions with others, particularly other humans, their mates, their kids, their parents, their family, their best friends, there's something that could be more. There's something that could be fuller, deeper, cleaner, richer, more fulfilling, touching, some kind of a touching more thoroughly and more deeply. But they don't understand what that is or what it's about or why they don't have it. They're doing all the things that are prescribed in the culture. They're doing all the things they're supposed to be doing, trying to do it as best as they can. But there seems like there's separation, a distance, a gap that they can't reach across, even to those they love the very most. And even with their pets, some people are able to connect with their pets a lot more than any other humans. They get closer, more love. But they could tell there's something more that they don't have. And they try to ignore that because it doesn't feel comfortable. Sometimes it can be quite painful when you really notice it. So this is what we're missing. This is what we're starving for this. We can talk a whole lot about, we're in words. In order for us to communicate, we have to use words. And our words often don't quite describe these spiritual things. They were never designed to. They've only been designed to express what our culture has accepted as reality and our world and our way of living and the things we believe in the culture. So when we try to find spirituality, real spirituality, we try to express it, try to communicate it to each other. The words are pale and thin, but we do the best that we can. Sometimes we have to string a whole lot of words together to try to make a more complete and fuller picture, to express these spiritual things. And included in that are very often emotions. Emotions can be a very big part of our spiritual experience. Another aspect of this is our minds, our thinking, the way we have learned how to think. We have to keep everything very linear and very sequential, where 1 + 1 always equals 2. And there's always a box. It's a thinking box. I have to think inside the box. This is the linear aspect of our mind. The more physical, material, 3D time space, linear time way of thinking. But our mind is much bigger than that. Our mind stretches into the non-linear, into the spiritual. The spiritual part of ourselves can also think. It just thinks very differently than our linear mind. And we've been trained to ignore it, to believe that any of that does not exist, couldn't possibly exist. But it does. And that's part of what we're learning when we start walking a real spiritual path, to gain back the spiritual aspect of our being, to own it again, and retrieve all of the gifts and the abilities that our spiritual part of our being contains, which is big. Many gifts, many talents, many things, capabilities, the magic. So as we're trying to describe to somebody else what an experience in that spiritual aspect of ourselves, when we're engaging that aspect, what that is like, it can be kind of tricky. So my teachers always told me to listen very, very carefully to their words, what they were saying, and to picture everything that they say as they say it. Make a picture in your mind, and to feel it. Feel it emotionally, but feel it throughout your body. A feeling quality that's beyond emotions, it's beyond linear thought, it's beyond the physical experiences of sensation. We're doing it all the time because it's impossible to actually fully turn it off, because it's a part of ourselves. You can't just cut it out and throw it away. And this is this feeling that it goes beyond physical senses and linear thinking and our regular emotional experience. So as I speak to you, feel the words, picture the words, and listen with the intent to remember. One of the things that we have a habit of doing in our culture is we listen without an intent to remember. And so we don't. Think about all the things that you hear all day long. People are saying to you that are on the TV, they're on the computer, they're on your phone, on the internet. And it goes in one ear, it's there for a minute, and then poof, it's gone out the other ear. And very often not easy to retrieve unless it's something that kind of strikes you and your mind holds on to it. But our spirituality, the spiritual aspect of ourselves, perceives things well beyond what is physical, what is typically physical, typically used in our modern culture. So in order to learn that, to start experiencing it, you have to kind of reach out with your beingness, with your energy. Reach a little bit past the physical senses. You don't have to try to reach really, really far. Just start by reaching a little bit past the physical senses and the linear mind and the usual emotional array. The linear mind loves to use words, language words, and that can be a trap. That can be something we have learned in our modern culture, to use words to drown out everything spiritual, everything that steps beyond the physical and the ordinary. So when we can quiet our mind a little bit, even just a little bit from what is normally battling along in there and jumping from one subject to another and here and there and that, just our mind is just flipping everywhere. To try to slow that down, to quiet that, because behind all those words is the spiritual aspect of everything. We're starving for the spiritual aspect of anything. We're starving for that experience, conscious, aware experience of it. The things are happening all the time. We're connected. There's a piece of us that is knowing that these things are going on. But we've learned to shut down our conscious awareness and shut it down so much that we're not perceiving any of it. We block it out. We hide from it. We cover it up. We bury it with our babble, with the emotions that get drug up, that we drag up with the babble. We drown it out with physical sensations. But all we have to do is slow everything down, slow ourselves down inside, slow our mind down, try to stop the words. We're often afraid that if we stop the words, we might die. There's nothing there. The words are somehow something that is keeping us in the world. The only thing they're keeping us in is the modern culture. And that cultural behavior and ways of believing and thinking that we've been taught. It's all learned behaviors, because when we're born, we don't have those words. We don't have those pieces of ideas, ways of thinking and living and being. We are knowing our truth, our song. We know who we are. We know our song. That's who we really are. We really know it. We live it. We own it. We identify with it. We perceive the songs of everything, everybody else. We understand how we're connected to everything. We're very telepathic. It's all within our conscious awareness when we're very, very tiny, babies, toddlers. And we can bring all that back. That's how there's a little piece of us somewhere inside that knows there's something missing, and it's important and it's big and it hurts and it kind of leaves an emptiness and a starvation because we lived it in this lifetime. Of course, in other lifetimes, we lived it a lot. And in our existence, wherever we are, whether we have a physical part of our body or not, we're aware of our song, and we know who we are and what we are. We're aware of the connectedness and participate in it consciously, purposefully. We're aware of the love that is involved, and we are participating, receiving, sharing, giving, all this information, all this life energy, all this love. That's a very big piece of this interaction that is continuous in the spiritual aspect of ourselves. So as we grow up in this culture, we learned behavior, we learn how to shut all of it out and starve ourselves. It's to somebody else's benefit, to an extreme minority. They think it's a benefit for them. They think they have power, cultural power. They think they have a lot of control, a lot of money. But they themselves are starving and they don't know it. So this experience of excuse me, I have a little thing that happened to on my screen. Okay. As I'm talking here today, and it's a good experiment just to try it, no matter who you're talking with or listening or where you are, the store, anywhere. Try this perceiving past the physical senses, listening with the intent to remember, feeling deeply, thoroughly feeling what you're hearing, and making pictures. It's very important to be making these pictures. So as I talk, try to do this. Try to experiment with it through the days ahead, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Even if there's no people around, maybe you've got some plants around you or animals or just whatever is there. Everything's alive, even the inanimate objects in your house. Everything is alive. And the air, the atmosphere, the wind, and water, just the water coming out of the sink, out of your faucet. it's alive and you can communicate with it. You can perceive it, you can feel it. So try it. This living more awake, way more awake, being consciously, purposefully aware of the spiritual aspects of things, the other, the rest of what is around us and in us, and the connectedness and the communication that is going on, the life energy love that's part of that communication. It's constant. I think one of the biggest lessons that I had about this was when I met the little alien and his friends that were in the backyard where I was staying. I was staying in the Egyptian teacher's house while she was gone. I was house sitting and cat sitting. And they were in the backyard with some equipment. And I've told this story before. I'll just tune into some of the important pieces. They it had some kind of a cloaking thing going on where I wasn't supposed to be able to see them. But I had been doing these Egyptian ceremonies and was practicing them. And the cat kept telling me there's something there in the yard and it was really, really cool. And don't you really think that's really nice? Can you see it? Can you see it? And I couldn't, but I started to go back into the ceremony, the steps. And it's changing your conscious awareness levels, your states of consciousness, one after the other, and enlarging one after the other. And I got to this one place, and they appeared. I could see them and their equipment. And I got very excited. They're very similar to us, but there's definitely some differences. They weren't quite as tall as me. They weren't teeny. They were, somewhere about that tall. If you dressed them right, you could walk them down the street. No one would ever guess that they were aliens. No one would ever guess. But after a while, after I begged them quite a bit, I don't know if that helped, but I was begging them for a long time while they were working. Please come talk to me, say something. Can you hear me? They just ignored me while they were working. They completely ignored me. So finally, one of them, who seemed like the guy in charge, or lady, I couldn't tell between the sexes, but he seemed kind of guyish. But he came up and he started communicating with me. And he was not using a voice, and he was not using words. Their favorite form of communication was telepathic, and it involved having this purposeful conscious awareness of all this life, this aliveness all around us. And the interaction, the communication and interaction in these spiritual levels. We would describe that as telepathic, but this connectedness, this communication that's going on between everything is on those energetic spiritual levels, telepathic. And he started to communicate. He invited me into his mind. And it was like the visual picture, which I think is somewhat symbolic, that my own mind created in order to be able to make more sense of the experience, because it was very different and very new, nothing I had ever dreamt of in my whole life, even though I'd seen many alien movies and read, sci-fi books and all that stuff. never had anything described like this. It was like a huge cave, but with a lot of light, lots and lots and lots of light. And that was the presence of his mind. That's the place that he would communicate with people on a more casual level. I could sense other aspects, other areas of the cave, or things that were like a whole other tunnel or cavern going off that had other kinds of activities and connections, like maybe with his mate at home, that kind of, a deeper, more thorough, intimate interaction. And that was private. It was like, certainly wasn't a sign hanging there, but a definite feeling, not rude or anything, but this is private. And this big area out here, this is where we share things. This is what is allowed, acceptable, agreeable to all parties. No right or wrong, no better than or less than, or no sense of excluding. It's just there were areas that were private. He wasn't going to talk to me about those things. But what he did talk to me about was huge. And his friends who were standing a few feet away, his co-workers, were also on the edge of that cavern. They were keeping their distance because this was a more one-to-one conversation, but they were not excluded, and they were not going to be part of the interaction. They aren't going to contribute to the conversation the way we would think of that. But they were there on the edge, watching and listening. They were all amazed that I could perceive them, and that I could perceive that telepathic conversation going on. And it was real fascinating for them. This was really kind of a new experience for all of us. And in this incredible space, I could feel and share so much with him. The interaction was like this. And in our culture, our modern culture, we interact, we're way out here. We're not connecting. We're way out here. We're making a purposeful space, a separation between two parties. We know that this is possible somehow, and that's part of the starvation, that we've learned how to exclude this fullness of interaction. There was so much emotion from him there, and the others, and myself, and it was shared. It was mixing. The thoughts, the ideas were all there and shared and mixing. Being able to feel him as a being, as an entity, a person, his whole personality is all there in the cave. And he had a huge cavern off to the end that I could see into. And I could see, it was like the cavern was full of a 3D picture of a galaxy up close. It was exquisite. And I got very excited about that. That was his scientific expertise, and that's kind of what he does with his culture. Astrophysicist, sort of. And that was one of his big loves. It's what he studied. But it wasn't just collecting data on machines. There was so much feeling in the image of the galaxy that was in that another cavernous room back there. It was the feelings of all the songs and all the connectedness and interaction between them and between him and the songs of the galaxy, that piece of the galaxy, and all the things that he was studying about that and learning and loving so much. It was such a big love and passion of his. And I was allowed to perceive it, to feel it, he even let me get closer in. We talked about a number of other things too. But it wasn't just the exchanging of flat little pieces of data that, oh yeah, he's a little alien and he's on this ship and these are his alien buddies and this is their work they're doing, this is their machines, and they come from such and such a place, and he has this occupation, he has a mate on his home planet. It's so much bigger, so much bigger and full of his life experience and the aliveness of all these things that he has in his life and he's interacted with. And I could feel from time to time his group, his buddies, the feeling that came from them, the awe and amazement, that we're able to communicate this much. Things about me, they could see into me as well. And what it was like to be human, and what it was like to be me as a human studying spiritual things and learning stuff that a lot of other humans don't learn. That was very enriching for them. These are the things that we're starving for as humans in our culture. These have been squished out of our lives. But they are retrievable. We can get them back. We can get it all back, and we can learn how to build a culture that is based on this kind of awakeness and this kind of interaction with people. With these people, there's nothing about them at all in their interactions that had any inequality, and there was no judgment. There was a definite observation and noticing of differences and similarities, lots of discernment, but with great excitement and passion. And there was the guy I was speaking directly with seemed to be, so we don't have the right kind of words, but leading the group in whatever work it was that they were doing in the backyard with their machinery. But leading is not the right word. It comes from our culture with hierarchy. Everything in our culture is based on hierarchy. In their culture, it's not. But as we're talking, as we're interacting, this information is part of the communication. It is obvious. It's just there. It's just obvious. And the love they have of self and the love of other. I felt their love for me. When they first saw me and heard me, there was a reaction of, oh no, it's a human. Not with a bad feeling about it. They did explain, the one in particular explained to me that they've been on the surface, they've run into humans before. Usually they're not seen, but they described us as stinking. We smell really bad, we stink. And it's not so much an olfactory, a nose smell, but in a bigger feeling sense, in a spiritual, nonlinear, auric perception. We stink. We're noisy. We stink. And not a good noisy. It's disruptive and it's aggravating to their systems. So they're not talking about body odor. It's not anything that has to do with physical stink and from our perspective, but we're offensive. We're psychically hard to put up with because we babble so much in our heads and we have so much going on, whether we're thinking, purposefully, consciously in the front of our mind, it's still rattling around in our field, in our mind. And we got this thing and that thing and this aggravation and this judgment and we're mad about that. We're fearful about this. We're just doing this throughout our whole being all the time. That's what we learn to be like. And they don't want to have to be around it because it's just not pleasant. But they were very surprised because I wasn't very much like that. And they were curious. They wanted to know why. They were very glad. And they were very happy to know that there were humans, especially in our culture, that were not like the rest of the noisy, stinky humans that they wanted to avoid. So they were definitely very aware and have had a lot of experience with our current human race and the current culture. And they knew about people of our culture, or of humanity, that were not part of our main culture. Primitive peoples, ancient peoples that still had their spirituality intact. But they see us as a child race. And we're still learning and growing and evolving. And we've got a lot to learn, a lot of growing to do. But all of these thoughts in our cultural language and words, they imply a lot of judgment and hierarchy, a lot of inequality. But that's not what they're feeling and thinking and believing. There's a whole different thing going on with their consciousness and their perception and their way of living. And we're starving for that. The love, the care, the kindness that comes with who they are, what they do what they do, how they do their work, how they interact, or even they're choosing not to interact with humans. There isn't a dislike or a disapproval or hatred or judgments. It just doesn't exist in them. My teachers, the Whitakers from Peru, they were like that. Their people don't have a word in their language for judgment and condemnation. And you just got to wonder about that. Think about it. Feel it. Feel into it. What would that really be like? What would humans be like if that words like condemnation, judgment, belittling, hatred, if they didn't even exist in the language? What would we grow up like? We're starving for it. We're starving for it. I think that covers starvation.
It's a good place to segue into to move into the human potential. Thank you, Kate. That was pretty amazing. Laura.
Yeah. Segue into the human potential, and one of the things I wrote down is all humans. There's as part of this, I'd love for you to the human potential, or human nature. One of the things you mentioned about, I find my notes, was the biggest piece of us is our spirituality. Maybe talk more about that, and as part of our human potential and all, because there is a belief that some people are special.
Our human concept of observing things, there's always hierarchy. There's better than and less than. About anything and everything, even, like the Whitakers used to say, toilet paper. We just can't think about anything. We don't know how to think about anything without hierarchy and judgment and better than and less than and a really good, really bad, right, wrong. And there's a nastiness in there. So we end up taking on this this concept of we're pretending to look into spirituality in the modern culture. There's a lot of people starting to wonder, to want, and they kind of play on the edge of the pond. They pretend to want to do things spiritually, but they don't know what it is. They don't know what they're really looking for. They think they've found it. Maybe they found little pieces of it, but they just don't know what that is. they take everything that is part of our current culture and all the ways of thinking and being and the hierarchy and the right and the wrong and the better, the less than. They take all of that and try to step into the spiritual aspect of existence with that package, with that point of view. And that's upside down and backwards. They can't see the real spiritual nature of anything when they're looking through those glasses. They're still in the box. They're still in the old box, the modern cultural box that we learned how to be in, how to live in, how to see, judge, perceive everything through that box, the glasses of that box. And we don't see anything different. We don't see what's really there. We don't perceive, we don't feel what's really there at all. Our real potential, the aliens, what I've tried to describe with those aliens, describes a lot about our potential, about who and what we really are, what we're capable of right now, today, and what we are evolving into as the centuries ahead come. If we let ourselves wake up, that's where we're headed. The potential, a good way to describe our potential is one of the Egyptian ways of describing these things. And that is the story about the Egyptian cat goddess, Bast. She has a hieroglyph that is extremely expressive of what she represents. Most of these hieroglyphs, the hieroglyphs originally expressed a great deal, a huge amount of information about whatever it was that it was talking about, whatever the hieroglyph meant, especially when it comes to something like a deity. It's a lot to talk about. Some of these hieroglyphs, you could write volumes and volumes about just that hieroglyph, about that one deity. Bast is like this. Her hieroglyph is actually a mixture of two hieroglyphs. And the first one is a curved line like this. It's curved. And then the bottom of the curve is a long rectangle that comes down. That is describing a uterus, the womb, and the birth canal, a vagina. The other hieroglyph is male, and it is a long rectangle with half of a cross on the top of the rectangle. That's male. It's a phallus, a penis. And these two are superimposed. They're integrated. They're connected. They're in full communion, intercourse. It's, on one sense, in a very common, more 3D physical way of looking at the story, the teachings. It means the physical aspect of a woman and a man, and getting together, joining together, and having sex, the sexual act, which is the beginning of creativity. The two come together. There's a spark, there's a gift from the male, a spark, a sperm, and that impregnates the female, the womb. And something gestates, something grows that wasn't there before. And then it is birthed. So Bas represents pure creativity, absolute pure creativity. And the physical part of the story is the metaphor. And what it's really describing is the female here. This is the womb of the universe. This is the whole rest of the universe out there. The non-linear, the spiritual, things that are not physical. This is the unseen. This is where all new things are birthed into existence from that spark, the first spark of idea, concept, consciousness. And then it becomes more and more. And it is interacting with everything around it. And it is gaining, receiving, it is giving, it's radiating out, it's sharing. And when it is just right, it's birthed. It comes out the womb of the universe and is birthed into our 3D time-space world. Even on just an energetic level, something that's not going to be existing in a physical realm, but energetic realms, it's the same process, it's the same story. There's a spark, there's a union of these different aspects of existence and different gifts, different properties, life energy, love. And it becomes, and it's birthed into the universe. There are things going out of the universe all the time too. They are dying from the universe and being birthed somewhere else. So the male, when we look at things from an earthly perspective, we have our 3D time-space materiality here, and we have the energetic, spiritual, unseen. The female, that womb, the uterus with the birth canal, that is everything that is unseen, the non-linear, the spiritual. It's the biggest part of existence in all the universe. It's huge, it's endless. The womb of the universe is endless and it's everywhere. The phallus, the male, it represents the 3D time space and physical things, the physicalness. So it represents also everything that is very linear, the linear operations of the mind. Remember, I said our mind has a lot more than just the linear operations. It has a whole nother part of it, which is part of that non-linear, part of the womb, which is endless. So the male represents something that is fixed in 3D time space. And it's it has we just don't have quite the right words, but the best I can get is that the womb is endless, huge, as big as the universe, bigger. And the male has a limited space, and it's very box-like. It has dimensions, physical dimensions. It has the restrictions of space and time. So it's much smaller. It has a limited space. It has a form, a limited form. We as physical humans on this planet Earth, we have both aspects. We have our physical aspect, which is, we got this material, and it takes up this kind of space, this much space, and it's solid. It has the physicality, and it perceives time in a very limited form, very linear, step-by-step form. 1 + 1 always equals 2. That's all part of the material world, the material reality, material perception of existence. The nonlinear has nothing to do with anything linear, doesn't have anything to do with time or space, totally outside of time and space. The womb of the universe exists everywhere, in every speck of all of our 3D time space. It is everywhere, and it is birthing things all the time, everywhere. Things, some of which become physical, like it's birthing subatomic particles and atoms, electromagnetic energies, all kinds of things that become physical, that we're physically aware of. It's birthing all kinds of other things too. And it's described by a number of indigenous peoples that this womb of the universe is something that we can learn to perceive. It's nonlinear. It's of the spiritual realm. It connects with other layers of existence and reality. Some might describe some of those layers as something like subspace, hyperspace. Got a lot of new science words that try to touch into some of that. But what we can learn to do as physical humans, this is our potential. This is who and what we are. These are things that we can do today. We're born with these things, these gifts, this magic. And one that seems rather relevant right now is being able to move our point of awareness, our consciousness, out, stretch it out of that physical box and let it stretch out into the nonlinear. Let it talk to the womb of the universe and ask for experience. Ask for knowledge. Ask for other kinds of gifts as well. Understanding. And the non-linear, the spiritual realm of things, we learn not by hearing words or lectures or reading text in a cosmic book, but we learn from experience. It's experiential. So when we ask the universe to give us knowledge and understanding about something we want to know about, we want to learn, it will do that. It will birth that knowledge and cover us in the world of that knowledge, in the non-linear. And we experience it inside and out thoroughly. And we gain knowledge, we gain knowingness from that experience. And then we can bring our point of awareness back into our 3D time space and into our body and our more regular awareness, carrying that giant package of new knowledge and experience. That is a potential that we have. If we want knowledge of a different world, a different kind of place, a different existence of certain spirits, or we want to communicate with individual spirits. Maybe a human who was very, very wise and knowledgeable here on Earth, that's no longer physically living on Earth. These beings still exist. They still live. They don't die. We can go talk to them. And it's through that connection. We have to be connected. We have to be connected with our linear parts of ourselves, our linear mind, our physical aspects, with the non-linear. It's not two separate worlds. There's not two separate things about us. It has to be joined. And when we are purposefully, consciously taking our awareness and uniting our totality together again, and allowing ourselves to have these experiences, these non-linear experiences, to learn, to grow, to evolve. This is how we do this. We have to bring them together, and they have to work together. We use the linear part of our mind to keep control of where we're headed in the non-linear, to keep track of the task that we set for ourselves, the question that we asked of the universe, so that we stay there, we stay on task while we're in the non-linear. Our conscious awareness, our point of awareness is in the non-linear, having these experiences. If we weren't using the linear part of our mind to, as the Whitakers used to say, keep us in our own driver's seat, with a seatbelt on and the hands on the driver's wheel, we wouldn't be able to have the experience that we desire. It takes the linear mind to hold us on track, on tack. So if we let our mind wander while we're trying to adventure into the spiritual realms, the non-linear, then the habit, especially with us, with this modern culture, our habit is to have our mind jump from one thing to another thing and another subject and go over there and over here, and we're babbling and questioning it, everything, all just scattered, jumping, bopping around. We're going to do that in the nonlinear, and we'll bop from one kind of place and thing and information and connectedness and talking with this being and those beings and this kind of communication. We'll just be flopping all over the place, and we won't know what's what or where we're at. That is psychosis. That is a psychotic episode. That's why a lot of primitives and the ancients talked about their medicine people, their shamans, their high priests, priestesses, as being very close to psychosis. So there's a thin line between what they do, which is controlled, and someone who is psychotic and is bouncing around in the nonlinear with no control, no direction, no task, no control, no map. They don't know where they are. They don't know what they're interacting with. They don't know what's happening. And they're crazy. And the experiences make them crazier. So the gift, the potential that we have is that we can learn how to control our linear mind and our attention. And we can learn how to tone it down, stop it from rattling and babbling endlessly and chaotically. And we can learn how to direct our attention at will, to be thinking and feeling whatever we want for as long as we want, whenever we want. And that is a gift, that is a treasure. We can learn about so many different things, all kinds of different things, incredible knowledge. And it is a gift to us personally. But it is also a gift to all of humanity, because whatever it is we gain as an individual, whatever it is we're doing as an individual, whether we are still asleep and we're doing the chaotic bouncing mind, going everywhere, babbling, full of the Walking Dead asleepness, or if we're awake and we're enlightened and we're able to activate and utilize our gifts, we are adding our experiences to the total human consciousness. Whatever it is we're doing, we are adding all that experience, whether it's crazy, chaotic, painful, or it's glorious and beautiful, ecstatic, gaining astounding knowledge and understanding of life and ourself and the universe. It all becomes a gift to the total human consciousness. Everybody has access to it. Easy access to it. And when enough of those things are added to the total human consciousness, then it's it's like a pot that you've been filling, and you keep filling it with more and more good stuff, this knowledge, and it finally gets so big, it's bubbling up, it's overflowing, and it can't help but to get into the conscious awareness of every human alive, now and to come later. That's how we evolve our species. We evolve ourselves as individuals, and we evolve the species through time and the numbers of humans. This is our potential. We can choose to stay asleep and stay in the crazy asleep chaoticness where we're experiencing lots and lots of pain, conscious and unconscious pain, and adding that to the total human consciousness, adding that to what people are easily going to be able to connect with and bring to their conscious awareness. Or we can add experiences with our gifts as human beings, and our gifts with how we are connecting with our own individual spiritual selves and our linear selves, and how this interaction, this dance is happening and being nurtured and developed and utilized and shared. And everything that we experience, we bring to the total human population now and forever to come. That's potential. That is a lot of potential. And we hear gifts about humans, these humans had from time to time through ancient cultures and primitive cultures. That they were very psychic, they were telepathic, that they could, they had telekinesis, they could move objects with their mind, with their intent. They could manifest things out of thin air. They could fly, they could, they knew incredible knowledge and gifts. They could create unthinkable things, develop all kinds of technologies, physical things, physical structures. These are true things. They aren't just fairy tales, wishful thinking. These are abilities that humans have. And that's us. We're human. We have these potentials. But we have to start waking up to be able to really utilize them. We have the potential to create whatever kind of world that we want. And if you can let your imagination stretch out into places you didn't allow yourself to go to before, and imagine what kind of humans we could be, what kind of people we can be, what kind of a culture we could make, what kind of society that would be, how creative we could be. What would that look like? What would it feel like? What would it be like to live like that? We can be making that, and that's what the weavings are all about. To change the web of life. We've broken our web of life. We've just crapped all over it, left it broken. And we can change that. Each one of us individually, cleaning it up, healing the threads, making room for new threads, for new possibilities, taking out the threads that lead to nothing but pain and anger and fear and war and violence and inequality and all those things. Take them out of our web. Clean up the mess that's left behind from engaging those webs, those fibers of the web. We can do that. It's our responsibility as humans, because this is our web, the web of life of planet Earth and of humanity. That's our web. We've done nasty things to it, and it's our responsibility to change it. And each person has to take those responsibilities on themselves individually. Each person. We all have to learn how to change those webs within ourselves and learn how to change it throughout the rest of the whole web of this planet and our species. So that's what real potential is.
You also just described what the weavings are at the end here so beautifully. But the whole thing was, wow, thank you.
I'd talk, but I'm still choked up. That was great. I love so much. My life felt impossible. You know, it was just the mess the human race, you know, has created, impossible to fix. You know, impossible to think that some of the things, you know, like talking to spirits or healing people, all of this stuff was impossible. You know, it was just over and over again, this little linear world of impossibilities. And you just said it so amazing, more than I asked for in my question, which I always love. So much more always when anybody asks you a question, you get so much more. But the things are possible. You know, healing, the more to human, you know, cleaning up the human race. It's all. I think that's why I love the weavings and hope more people are curious about it and want to participate in it, is because in the short time that, you know, the few years I've worked with you, it's just this life of impossible is suddenly like possible and so tangible and right there. You know, it's not like it hasn't been work getting around my own babble. It's been, for me, a lot of work and still work, but the more I keep talking about the potential, the possibility, and, you know, and I'm going to start crying again, it's just right there.
Yeah.
Thank you for answering those questions.
Mm.
I think we need a new katasee, human possibility, as a tagline. Because that's really what it's one, I shouldn't say, it's one of the bigger pieces of what you're signing up for.
It is.
Thank you.
You're so very welcome.
I'm going to finish on my nose, muting.
I think we should close it here for the day, and because there's a whole lot of the question about becoming alive again. That's another whole story that would add a lot. But how about we do a separate one on that one? What do you think, Kay and Laura?
Whatever you guys want. What do all of you out there want?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious if there was question. I mean, that was such good stuff. Do you make them hold their questions?
Well, let's see what people want. Do you want to talk about, do you want to do question and answers, or should we go on to the becoming alive and the walking dead?
I like holding it.
Okay, we'll go on and talk about the next piece.
Laura said she would like to do another webinar. I think that's right, Laura, right?
Yeah, becoming alive again feels like
it could be big. It's a lot to talk about.
I don't.
Let's do another webinar as soon as we can, and then we talk about the walking dead and how to become alive again, and maybe combine it with the one we left out on the last webinar, which was about the importance of ceremony in our lives and how to bring it back into our lives.
Yeah, I think we blew some minds. So much to digest for today.
Did anybody write up any questions? Send in any questions?
We don't have any questions yet. So if you have questions, just there's a Q&A icon on your screen, on your window somewhere. Click on that and put in your questions. We take those, and if there aren't any, we're gonna close it out here slowly.
Yeah, I think the consensus was some mind-blowing, and I think they need to. It was good.
Annika, hi Annika. She says, "I love you so much. Song to song. Thank you so much. I want to wake up."
Yeah. Me too.
Thanks, Annika. And Storm, amazing. Kay was answering all my questions as they arose. I'm looking forward to the next webinar. Thank you. Thank you, Storm. And there's much gratitude and a fantastic webinar. There's so much to embrace. It brings joy to my heart. Okay, this was truly amazing. So here's another, we give it another minute if you have questions. There's a comment that next time I'd love to hear more about having to do this for ourselves versus helping others wake up. Do you want to touch on that now? This is probably a good piece to add here.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah. In order for us to be able to help others wake up, we have to be waking up ourselves. We have to do it for ourselves first. We have to heal ourselves first. We have to learn what all of this is about, clean up what we have created inside of ourselves. The asleepness, the craziness, what we learned from our modern culture is all learned, and it can be unlearned. And You can learn new things that have to do with awakeness instead of more asleepness. We have to do it for ourselves first. The ancients said it. The pre-dynastic Egyptians said it. The ancient Peruvians, Whitakers, said it. So many other cultures with the still carry some ancient knowledge, they all say it. You have to heal yourself first. You can't give to somebody else something that you don't have. There's a Hindu saying about you're on the shore of a lake, someone's out in the middle and they're drowning, they're asking you to help. You don't know how to swim. You can't go rescue them. There's no way. You'll drown yourself as well. You can't help them unless you learn first. You heal yourself first. You unplug all of the cultural dynamics, all of the craziness, all of the asleepness, all of the psychoticness that we learned from our culture. We have to let it go and step out of the box. We've been living inside this little bitty box. D'Amato and Whitaker used to say, the box is it's little, it's like this big, and we've been in it our whole lives. There's this TV screen covers what we're looking at here. We got the headphones on, and the only thing we see, the only thing we touch, the only thing we hear, smell, taste is the box. The box dictates everything that we experience. All our thoughts, all our beliefs, all our emotions of the moment. It's dictating everything. It's not coming from the realness of our core, from our song. It's something else. Shoves that off. The box shoves that off, and it's dictating everything that we think we are experiencing. I mean, literally, I want you to hear this. Everything you think, everything you believe, all the emotions that you're feeling are overwritten. They're all controlled by the box, by the programming. The Whitakers call that our masks. It's all learned behavior, learned responses that turn into automatic responses, automatic pilot. We have to realize that, accept it, and let go. Clean up everything that's left. Clean up all the damage that it caused. And start looking at what's outside the box. You gotta break through the cardboard and get out of the box and see what's there and feel what's there, experience what's there. There's so much more in the universe, so much more to us individually. That's waking up. That's where waking up starts. And it's a process. It's step by step by step. It can't be rushed. We got to realize and accept also that we're addicted to the box. We're addicted to the programming, to the masks, everything that they do, everything that they make us feel and think and believe. So as we accept that, and we decide that we really, honestly, and truly want to give up our addiction to it, then we're able to crack out of the box. We're able to unplug it all. That's when really interesting things start to happen. We're going to really start feeling that something's really different, that we are waking up. That you could feel that you used to be numb and asleep and blind to so much of who and what you are, and so much of the reality of being a human being, and the reality of what the world is around you. Blind to it, blocked from it. But waking up, then you get to really start knowing who and what you actually are, which is something much bigger and much greater and much more delicious than anything you ever imagined. And so is the rest of the world. So are the rest of the humans around you that we have learned how to disregard and think less of. But that's not what the real world is. So that's where it starts. Waking up is something that just keeps going. There's always more. There's always more to be able to perceive and experience and understand. And just about the time you think, well, wow, I'm out of that first box, and I've learned so much and experienced so much, and I feel so much more awake. You realize, yeah, that's true, but you're still in a box. It's a bigger box, but it's a box. It's got more real stuff in it, but you need to now step out of that. You got to break through that, step out of that, go through that door. And it just keeps going. It's waking up and the evolving and learning. It just never stops. Like nesting dolls. Yeah, it's kind of like that.
That is one of the challenges in the world in general, but especially in the spiritual world, that falling into the trap of I know that already, and being careful not to do that and keep going. Okay, I'm going to put a couple of links into the chat. One is the link where you will find this video, the video from the first webinar is already there. The second, the one from the day, will show up there pretty soon. And then I have a second link, if I find it again. Here it is. The second link is if you want to join if you're interested in joining the weaving gathering ceremonies coming up in September of this year. There's a link there where you can apply for that. And I will send emails about all that as well, but I thought I put the links in there. Hanne, I believe, is pronouncing the name correctly. She has a question: how do we interact with children and grandchildren in that way?
That is a really good question. As we're waking up, we're learning who and what we are. We're learning what our song is, what the truth of our own beingness, what others might call their spirit or their soul. The Whitakers refer to that as song, our totality. The more that you know about yourself, who and what you are, what your song is, the songs of others, how connected we are, and how contrived our modern culture is, with all of its judgment and hierarchy and negativity, violence. And it doesn't have to be here at all. We've passed it down. We've taught from one generation to the next. We keep teaching our children the ways of that old, broken, dying culture, the dying world. We don't have to. We can teach them the ways of song and love and light and aliveness. One of the best ways to teach them is through your example. The more you learn about it and learn how to live it and be it yourself, you're showing them just with every second, whatever you're doing, washing the dishes, sitting down and coloring with them, whatever it is, riding in the car. It's how you are being in the moment is what teaches them the most. So the more you learn and incorporate in your daily beingness and your behavior, your actions, what you radiate out of you, that teaches them the most. But also verbal lessons about a different way of being, a more humane way of being. I used to call it being real human, not an artificial human, but a real human. What real humanity is and is meant to be and is capable of, what our potentials are. And it doesn't have to be big, heavy lectures. It could be little comments about anything, just as it comes up in the day. Our grandkids would come and visit from the time they were, infants. They'd come once or twice, every once in a while, maybe a third time in the year, and stay for, maybe 5 days, something like that. And we just were ourselves. We just radiated what we have been learning to be, in what amount of waking up we have accomplished. We radiate that out. They learn that just from what is radiating out of you. And then how we go about just doing things and playing games. And,
I think how we are with each other, how the love, the respect, the care.
They didn't notice that, I think, as much when they were little. They just took it for granted. But now the grandkids are, if you're listening, Emma and Hannah, I'm sorry, I don't know exactly what your age is anymore. I lost track. I know you're something close to like 19 and maybe 22 or 23 or something. But they're adults now. And they have their own lovers, their partners that they are with. And, they've gone through experiencing having boyfriends before that. They've experienced their own parents. They've experienced divorce and the parents of their friends, their other grandparents. And they come here and we're quite different. We have a very different relationship than the asleep population out there that they see every day, and they see on TV and in movies. Those are the examples that are most prevalent. They come here, and we've been together 26 years or something close to that. I'm sorry, I lost count of that too.
A little more than that.
But they see a great friendship and caringness and love, and the way we talk with each other. And there isn't any harsh talking, and there's no yelling, and there's no judging, no demeaning, no belittling. Lots of helpfulness, lots of caring. When we're both, up in the morning, Helmut typically will get up before me, and when I get up, he hears me stirring. He's got a fresh, hot cup of espresso decaf with cream, steamed cream, ready for me, and brings that to me with love and kisses and sweet voices. And this is just the way we are interacting all the time. And it's natural for us. It's not something put on. It's not something forced. It's just out of love. Love and caring and wanting to do for and make nice and help. And we help each other with different chores around the house, and it's very smooth and kind and full of love. And I'm reciprocating in other ways throughout the day that is similar to his morning espresso. And they notice that, now that they've gone through several boyfriends and they have a more permanent partner. I hope really good permanent partners. But you never know about that stuff. But they're really noticing our daughter through more recent years, seeing things in her own life differently, noticing things about our life that are so different. I understand that a little clip of that got posted recently.
It's just sharing the love and the passion and the aliveness.
Love of life.
Staying with it, keeping it alive.
Appreciation and respect of self first. You have to have all these things for yourself first. And then you can offer them out to others. Then you can give genuine respect and appreciation and gratitude to others, those around you, everybody else.
And your kids and grandkids notice.
And they learn it. Sometimes it's hard to tell if they've learned any of it. But they're absorbing a lot. They're learning. It's going in and sinking in. And there are parts of them inside themselves that are noticing, comparing in a sense to all these different people and the way they do things and the way of their beliefs and behavior and what they see on TV, movies, and the internet. They notice. And they learn. They learn from it. And to be around you when you're waking up, they get to feel the difference between what it's like to be around you as you wake up compared to somebody who's full of fear and anger all the time. What that feels like, that feels really different. So we need to be what we want to help heal in the world. We need to be it ourselves.
All right. We talk about more of that in the next one. Laura, you have anything else?
No, I'm great.
All right. Then thank you. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Kay.
Thank you, Kay. Thanks, Hellman.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us live.
It's always an honor. It's a very, very special honor to be able to provide you with all these things, to be able to speak to you all about these things that have been so forbidden and so hidden for so long. I feel very, very honored. So I thank you, Laura, Helmut, and all of you. Thank you all so much.
Until next time.
Until next time.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I love you.
Love you.
Love you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a beautiful day.